is the land which God promised to Abraham. Once, while the Jews lived in this land, it was the center of a great civilization. When the Jews were driven out, the land gradually declined. Primitive life returned. Jerusalem, the most famous city in the world. It remained unchanged throughout the centuries. The streets and bazaars within the old city are the same today as they were in the Middle Ages. The city on the hill of Zion existed as a sanctuary for three great religions, embracing one half of the human race. Millions of Mohammedans throughout the world revere the mighty mosque of the Dome on Mount Moriah. The churches of Jerusalem, too, commanded the veneration of millions. They were of peculiar sanctity to world Christendom. Via Dolorosa, consecrated by the footsteps of the founder of Christianity. But older than these by far are the memories which bind the Jewish people to Palestine, the birthplace of their religion and their nationhood. Yesterday, only a handful of Jews could be found in Palestine. They lived in poverty, but clung to the country for the sake of its memories. Most of them had come in their old age from distant countries to die in Palestine and be buried in its sacred soil. Oriental Jews, Sephardim, had always been part of the Palestinian scene. Their life resembled in externals the life of the surrounding people, but it had in it more than an echo of the patriarchal civilization which is mirrored in the book of Genesis. Within them, these Jews carried the undying tradition of the Jewish past as well as the hope of a glorious Jewish future. From the Arabian Peninsula came the Jews of Yemen, always accompanied by the eternal book, in which they read from childhood on, generation after generation, keeping its words alive. Such a scene as this might have greeted the eyes of Jacob and of Rachel. Rachel's tomb is for the Jew, the symbol of sorrowing Jewish motherhood. Palestine was a land of tombs, and among them the Jews wept for the restoration of the glory of Zion. Through the ages, the Jews made pilgrimages to all these places, filled with holy memories, to add their prayers to those of their ancestors, that the scattered children of Israel be gathered again into the shelter of their own homeland. The holiest place is the Wailing Wall. Pioneers and refugees from countries of the oppression, where Jews are free to be anything but Jews, young and old, they are going now to a land which accepts them as its own and not merely as strangers to be tolerated. Yesterday, prisoners of the ghetto, prisoners of their own false hopes. Tomorrow, they will march to their work in the Jewish settlements, to build roads, to quarry stones. They will drill wells and bring the hidden water, the most precious treasure, out of the depths of the earth, to restore to Palestine's soil its long neglected fruitfulness. They are going to Haifa, the great new seaport of the East. To the all-Jewish city of Tel Aviv, to the new Jewish settlements, jubilantly to work.
יחד. יחד, חבר'ה, יחד.
And with the most modern machinery, the Jews are bringing back to Palestine its long neglected fruitfulness. a people separated from nature for 2,000 years returns to live with her in happy communion. The settlements, founded only a few years ago by pioneer workers, have become self-supporting, proving that Jews can be most efficient tillers of the soil. The new generation is being brought up in the same spirit which brought their parents back to the soil. Famous above all are the cooperative colonies of Palestine, where a national idealism is linked with a social idealism, and the work of every man and woman is directed to a social and not a personal goal. Out of these cooperative colonies will come undoubtedly new forms of human organization valuable to the Jewish homeland and instructive to the rest of the world.
ואין.
פעם נוכל היגע ומרגוע להמל, לילה חיוור משתרע על קצות עמק יזרעאל, טל מלמטה ולבנה מעל, מבית אלפא עד נהלל. דממה לילה מליל, דממה בישראל, נאמר עמק ארץ תפארת, אנו לך משמרת. ים הדגן מתנועע, שיר העדר מצלצל, זוהי ארציות נוטע, זהו עמק ישראל. תבורך ארצי ותתהלל, מבית אלפא עד נהלל. דממה לילה מליל, דממה בישראל, נאמר עמק ארץ תפארת, אנו לך משמרת.
זוהי ארצי ושדותיה, זהו עמק ישראל. תבורך ארצי ותתהלל, מבית אלפא עד נהלל.
דממה לילה מליל, דממה ביזרעאל, נאמר עמק ארץ תפארת, אנו לך משמרת.
טל מלמטה ולבנה מעל, מבית אלפא עד נהלל.
דממה לילה מליל, דממה בישראל, נאמר עמק ארץ תפארת, אנו לך משמרת. עמדי בשקט.
Not less wonderful than the Jewish colonies of Palestine are the Jewish cities, of which Tel Aviv, with its more than 100,000 inhabitants, stands in the place which was wilderness 25 years ago, sands and cactus where jackals roamed. It is a city still expanding, still spreading north and south and east, still changing sandy wastes into busy streets. The women pioneers of Palestine demand and obtain an equal share of the hardest work. On the land, they are plowwomen, stone breakers, road workers, and in the cities, they are masons, bricklayers, and builders. transformation of the ancient Orient into the modern world is seen with most startling effect in Tel Aviv. Camels are still in use, but they are being replaced by trucks, buses, cars, bicycles, and motorcycles. Tel Aviv, like many American cities, has its grade crossing problem, and for the same reason, it grew much faster than anyone foresaw. Only 25 years old, Tel Aviv already has historic periods. There are pioneer shops of 10 and 15 years ago where housewives, newly arrived in Palestine, took their first Hebrew lessons. The lessons still continue, but the shops have changed, and the goods they contain are to a larger and larger extent being manufactured in Palestine. The olive oil of Palestine, mentioned in the Bible, is used in the manufacture of Palestine soap, a product ranking with the finest of its kind in the world. This soap is used not only in the homeland, but also abroad. The Dead Sea itself is alive with industry today. The Jews are making it yield up its priceless chemical deposits to build one of the most important industries in the country. Silk. In ancient times, the East was famous for silk, but as life in general declined, this industry disappeared. Today, it is being restored by the Jews. The cotton, which is being grown next door in Egypt, is now being woven in Palestine. The textiles which the country needs for socks, stockings, underwear, shirts, light dresses, table linen, bed linen, and 100 other uses come from Jewish factories set up within the last 10 years. Factory in Palestine. Palestine teeth are being worn today all over the world. Good workmanship gained an international market for these goods. From the Jewish farm, the milk goes direct to the bottling plant, where it is pasteurized and bottled hygienically. Palestine milk and honey for the making of candy. Like other products of the country, this fills not only a home need, but finds an increasing market abroad. These factories, a small part of the steadily expanding industry of Palestine, are only an index of the tremendous possibilities which are created by bringing together the Jewish people and the Jewish homeland. The Anglo-Palestine Bank, the largest Jewish bank in the country, is not run for private profit. It is the outgrowth of Theodor Herzl's idea of a Jewish national bank. It is dedicated to the service of the country, and with its branches in every city in Palestine, it takes a leading part in promoting industry and commerce. Hebrew everywhere, in the shop, the office, the telephone, the telegraph, the composing room of the daily newspapers. There are papers representing every shade of public opinion. One of these papers is Davar, the labor newspaper. Is the symbol today of Palestine's extraordinary progress. And the interest it has awakened is evident in the flags of the nations which have their pavilions in this first modern international fair of the Orient. For Palestine, the most important pavilion is, of course, the Totzeret Haaretz, the home industries pavilion. The visitor is amazed to see that a country which 15 years ago had to import almost every kind of industrial product has learned to meet its own needs. And Palestine has a growing export trade too. And thus, one of the long neglected corners of the world is being transformed into a great productive center. Tel Aviv begins its business week Sunday morning and ends it Friday afternoon. Then the Jews buy flowers to adorn their homes for the Sabbath. On days of rest in Tel Aviv, the population streams toward the seashore. The Tel Aviv Beach is the greatest place of recreation in Palestine. It ranks now as a resort with the Lido of Venice, America's Atlantic City, and England's Brighton Beach as a world attraction. It draws not only Tel Avivians and Palestinians generally, but visitors from every country in the world. ancient and mighty walls, the old Jerusalem remained unchanged. But a new generation breaks through the lethargy of centuries. There is a new Jerusalem springing up outside the old. Among the forces building it is the Nathan Strauss Health Center, administered by Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America. But the nerve centers of the new Jewish Palestine are the Jewish Agency, the Jewish National Fund, and the Palestine Foundation Fund. The Hebrew University, with its glorious open-air theater on Mount Scopus, is the center of the spiritual and cultural rebirth of Palestine. The Creation, the most famous oratorio of the great composer Joseph Haydn, is being given here with Hebrew text by an orchestra and choir of Jewish working men and working women. Surely this composer never dreamed that his oratorio would be performed on this historical hill by the children of the prophets who had inspired him. Open to students of all races and religions, the Hebrew University and its library answer the deep inner need of the Jewish homeland. The scientific study of local soil, local plant, and animal life is carried on at the Daniel Seat Institute, directed by Dr. Chaim Weizmann. The whole Near East will benefit, not less than Palestine, from these researches. Palestine trains its own engineers, architects, and experts. This was the dream of the earliest colonizers of Palestine when they founded the famous technical school of Haifa. The future managers and foremen of Palestine's industries are being trained in the workshops of the technical school. They learn to handle machines by practical methods and not by theory alone. But students are also drawn into the living currents of Palestinian life by its songs of reconstruction. Out of laboratories, libraries, and workshops to mass meetings and public demonstrations of the people. Public posters describe what the Jews of Palestine feel, as told by a typical worker at the mass meeting to which these young folks are marching.
היום ארץ ישראל עולה ופורחת. במקומות שונים ביישוב היהודי נדרשים 10,000 עובדים. אם אנחנו בשעה זו לא נדע לעלותם, אין תקווה להתפתחותנו, לגידולנו. עבודתנו הביאה ברכה גדולה ליישוב הלא יהודי. ידענו כי בניין מולדת דורשת השתתפות מלאה של כל חלקים ושכבות העם. ההסתדרות הציונית עוד מימי הרצל קוראת לכל העם היהודי להתאחד למטרה הנעלה הזאת. כסמל ההשתתפות הזאת נוצרו העקרונות הלאומיים, את קרן הקיימת וקרן היסוד. ובאותו שעה כאשר המשק היהודי דורש 10,000 אנשים, מתנוון נוער יהודי בפינות שונות בעולם, ומשום כך דרישותינו כיום לממשלת המנדט: תסירו את הכבלים, תפתחו את שערי הארץ, תגבירו את פעולתנו. ולעם היהודי אנחנו אומרים בכל פזוריו: העלו ובנו, תנו אמצעים, תתנדבו, תגבירו את פעולתנו, כי בלי בניין ובלי יצירה לא ייתכן, לא פועל יהודי, לא עם יהודי, לא ארץ אשר היא תהיה ותיבנה כמולדת עבודה לעם היהודי. הגבירו כוח, הגבירו מפעלים, הגבירו יצירה בכל פינה, גאלו כל שעל אדמה, יגהל אנשים, יביא עולים, יביא אותנו לגאולה, להגברת כוח, למולדת עבודה, ליצירה, לחיים חדשים, לחיים כלכליים בריאים של עם החי על מולדתו, חיים חדשים.
לחיים חדשים. A new life is starting. The vision of the new harvest in their own homeland now becomes a reality. Harvest is almost all the year round in Palestine. There is the harvest of wheat, the harvest of grapes, the harvest of oranges. Where 20 years ago the soil was either marshland or else just scratched with primitive plow, the modernized machinery and modern methods of the Jews obtain a maximum yield. flour mills of Palestine can compete with the most up-to-date enterprises of the Western world for efficiency. Of oranges, or as they are called in Hebrew, golden apples, cover the land where 10 years ago not even thistles grew. Over 7 million cases of golden apples were shipped out of Palestine this season, and the yield grows from year to year. Plums never grew before in Palestine. But the grapes of Palestine are as old as the land itself. They were famous in ancient times. They have become famous again. And equally famous are the wines of Rishon and Carmel. When the grain and the fruit harvests are in, the Jewish festival is celebrated as it was in the ancient days of the temple. In Haifa, at the head of the valley of Jezreel, the Palestinian Thanksgiving is observed amid colorful scenes. The wanderers of 2,000 years have come home. In their homeland, they express their gratitude for the new life which is theirs, and for the promise which it holds out to millions of exiles scattered throughout the world. The fulfillment of an ancient dream.
גורדון, מתי אנחנו נוסעים מהעירה?
נבוא לזמן המדויק.
לחיים חדשים.
יחד, יחד.
Oh,